Joining us now is former Medtronic CEO, CNBC contributor Bill George. John Fort joins us here on set as well. Bill, I'll start with you because this is the first leadership test for the heir apparent to Samsung. How did he do?
Terrible. I'm sorry to say it, but, he replaced one defective product with another defective product. Look, companies have problems. They have difficulties. But you better get the fix right. They didn't have their engineers get to the root cause. No one came to the U.S. to find out what the real problems were. The engineers in the labs have not been able to replicate what the problem was. So they said, oh, it must be the batteries, except it wasn't the batteries. And they put out another product with a different battery, and they have the same problems. They haven't figured out their own system, and I think they're too turned inward, too hierarchical, and frankly, they announced a 33% reduction, $1 billion of loss in profits this quarter. It's going to be much bigger. One analyst said $17 billion, but that doesn't compare to the loss of the brand. They're going to lose big-time share to people like LG Electronics, Huawei, and when Google comes to market, people love their Android. They want to stay with Android. I'm actually an iPhone user. I love my iPhone. But they get used to it, and they don't necessarily want to change ecosystem. So I think the big winners are going to be, other than Apple, but I think the CEO and Mr. Lee have got to get over to the United States, make public apologies, probably have to appear in front of Congress or someone to, otherwise they're going to wind up like Volkswagen has with tremendous damage to a great brand. And it's really a tragedy. Samsung is a great company, but they're behaving very poorly in crisis.
But John, you think about the biggest recalls in history. Most of them involved fatalities. That's not the case here. This is a phone. It overheated, and the images are awful. But is there anything they can do to ring fence it within the company at this point?
Well, the problem, I think, in analyzing this is that we know so little about how Samsung is actually run. I mean, a challenge is a lot of companies. Apple, if you're an Apple fan, then you probably know Tim Cook and Johnny Ive are a couple of people at the top who can speak for the design, the operation, the running of the company. But when it comes to Samsung, they've got lots of celebrity endorsers, but who really speaks for the brand? I mean, yeah, it would be great if executives were to come over here and testify before Congress. But, I've sat down a couple of times with high-level Samsung executives. They don't even like sitting down for TV interviews over concerns over how their English comes across. And so this is a challenge in operating in this kind of a space, particularly in a premium market. True, no fatalities. But the reason why Samsung is doing so well in phones is because they're a premium player. They're able to charge this premium because of the brand. They've already projected that for their Q3, a third of their profit is going away as of today because of this. The question raises, well, what about Q4? What if they can't figure out either supply chain-wise or logistics-wise what went wrong here? How does that affect their rollouts for 2017?
Bill, your response to that?
Yeah, let's go deeper into what John's saying. Here's the problem. Is that I've been urging companies like Samsung to diversify the people sitting around the decision-making table at the headquarters in Seoul. And they're not doing that. They're all Korean. They all think one way. They're clueless about the impact on the public in the U.S. And when things go viral in the U.S. and how the damage, okay, maybe there weren't any deaths. There weren't any deaths from Volkswagen either. But I can tell you the brand damage goes far beyond the 25 or 30 billion they'll lose.
That's interesting.
It's the reputation of the brand. They need more diversity, advising them, and the executives need to get over here and engage in the marketplace, talk to real consumers, get into stores. Maybe they talk to, look at some of the devices.
Bill, but you're exactly right. It's a diversity issue at the top level of Samsung in terms of the board, in terms of the management. One of their most important markets is the U.S. market, and they have nobody at the very top of the corporation who's able literally to speak to this market in a comfortable way.
Bill, we've had you on a number of times this year to talk about corporate crises. I took a poll on Twitter the other day. I said, what's the crisis of the year? Mylan, Wells, Deutsche, Valiant, or Samsung? You got to vote.
How'd it come out?
I think Samsung narrowly beat Wells.
Okay, it's a very bad year. And I can tell you, John Stump didn't handle that well either. Why don't we learn? We were just teaching a group of CEOs last week at Harvard, large company CEOs from very big global companies about the importance. And we used Jim Burke at Tylenol. Why? Because he was real. He was authentic. And he admitted that they made a mistake of going back in the market after 6 weeks and putting out a product that led to the same problems again. He admitted that. The lawyers say, oh, you'd never do that. No, he was real and he was authentic. He was sweating, he was perspiring, and he said, you know, this is really upsetting to me. You know, we don't see any feelings, any emotion. Consumers want to know you're connecting with me. You know about my problem. And I'm scared about this problem. And that's the issue. You have to trust the brand. You don't know if that brand works or not. It's a question of trust, and they are destroying the trust every day.
Going back to the founding myth of Samsung's smartphone, really their phone business, in 1995, Lee Kun-hee, who's the chairman, he burned 2,000 phones on a manufacturing plant floor. They had been handed out to employees and they didn't work, and he burned them to show that we won't accept anything defective. So how do you think this is playing out in the psyche of the Samsung worker, and how far do you think morale has to climb back from this kind of a debacle?
It's a good question.
Wonderful example. Why didn't he come over and do that here and go into the store and throw them in the trash and do it in front of CNBC on national television and, you know, actually get real, you know? And you're exactly right. That's a great example of what setting a standard for the people. But I think they're probably all scared in Korea and they don't understand the U.S. market and they are afraid about language. They have to get over that and they have to be real and come here.
We'll see if the safety regulations of the New York Stock Exchange would let us do that. Bill, always good to see if this recent spate of crises means anything. We'll probably see you very soon. John, I know we'll see you.
Yeah, too many crises this year. It keeps you going, but it's not good for the general public.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Bill, take care, John. We'll see you soon.
Breach of trust. Remember that, guys, breach of trust.